Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Economic Alliance Snohomish County's Coffee Chats. Thank you for joining us today and for taking time out of your morning to be part of this conversation. I'm Rachel Morera, Director of Community Engagement at Economic Alliance Snohomish County, and I'll be your moderator this morning. Today's session focuses on Snohomish County's Community-Wide Climate Resiliency Plan, an effort currently in development that aims to help our region prepare for climate-related impacts such as flooding, extreme heat, and infrastructure strain. As these types of disruptions increasingly affect infrastructure systems, supply chains, and community stability, resilience planning is becoming an important part of long-term economic stability and regional coordination. This conversation is designed to provide an early look at the county's approach, what's being considered, how the plan is being developed, and why it matters for employers, communities, and regional partners. We'll begin with a brief overview from our speakers, followed by a moderated discussion. Please join me in welcoming today's speakers. Molly Beeman is Energy and Sustainability Manager for Snohomish County, where she leads efforts focused on climate strategy, energy planning, and sustainability initiatives across the region. Molly, thank you for being here.
Good morning.
And Eileen Canola is a Senior Planner with Snohomish County Planning and Development Services, where she works on long-range planning efforts that support coordinated growth, infrastructure, and community resilience. Eileen, thanks for being here. So to begin this morning, we'll start with a brief overview to help ground today's conversation. Molly and Eileen will walk us through the purpose of the Countywide Climate Resiliency Plan, key risks the county is planning for, and how this effort is taking shape. So Molly, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So Snohomish County is working on a community-wide climate resiliency plan, or CWCRP, as we affectionately call it. Without it, we are going to struggle with addressing increasing effects of climate change while managing complexity across systems with our partners and our integrated priorities. We will also struggle with fragmented efforts leading to inefficiencies and missed opportunities. Growing risks can outpace our current approaches. And without this plan, limited visibility into collective local, regional, and state progress can lessen our efforts. In developing the CWCRP, we hope to establish a unified countywide approach, align departments, partners, and resources towards shared outcomes, and improve efficiency, coordination, and decision-making. What we really want to do is build long-term resilience through measurable actions. Why does this matter? We're at a point where maintaining the status quo carries more risk than changing does. This plan outlines how we reduce exposure while capturing opportunities to build a more resilient and efficient and effective community. A countywide climate resiliency plan that integrates the work of departments and community partners isn't just good practice. It's essential for effective governance, risk management, and resource alignment. By aligning with the Washington State Climate Resilience Plan, which uses cross-cutting strategies, the CWCRP organizes actions that enable community resilience. This work ensures alignment with other county planning efforts, like the Snohomish County Comprehensive Plan, updated in 2024 to include a climate resiliency element. The plan benefits the county and community by looking at reducing financial risk and infrastructure protection. The CWCRP helps anticipate and mitigate damage from extreme weather, lowering long-term costs. It protects critical infrastructure from climate-related disruptions, reduces emergency repair and recovery, improves access to state funding. In preparation for this work, we conducted a strength and needs assessment at the county level that informed the plan development. We worked with an exhaustive list of external and internal partners to further inform this effort and ensure that the plan aligns with state, regional, local, and community requirements. We looked at actions, both current and future, that should be continued or considered by the county and its partners as a part of the strategy plan for climate resilience. And we integrated that information and data gathered and solidified those elements into a draft plan. Today, we're working on a final and refined draft document. In the spring, the plan will be out for review and public comment via Conveo, followed by another review by planning partners and a briefing to first the county Planning Commission, and then the County Council. Eileen and I are looking forward to the Q&A session today to provide more detailed information and maybe answer some of your questions. All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that overview and setting the stage for today's conversation. Let's dig a bit deeper into how this work is taking shape. So, Molly, we'll kick it off with you. From a sustainability and energy perspective, what are the most pressing climate-related risks Snohomish County is planning for right now?
Well, wildfire smoke is one of the big issues. It's a hot topic all the time. And as we're approaching that season, I think we can probably expect more of it this year. Also, flooding. We've experienced a record flooding season this year. We also are looking towards infrastructure protection by partnering with utilities. The county is working to ensure critical infrastructure and community assets that can withstand the impacts that we're facing. Storm severity and heat issues are also high on our list of priorities. Power outages that result from severe storms can put a terrible strain on our county resources.
Thank you. Eileen, how are you thinking about resilience in terms of infrastructure systems, particularly energy, utilities, and critical services?
Sure. Well, as Molly mentioned, the utilities, our electric power, our gas, our water and wastewater systems, they're like the veins of our communities. They really help us become more economically viable and ensure that we have public health and safety, and we can function efficiently. Anything that threatens that, so like severe storms, wildfires, floods, extreme heat, those are things that make our systems very vulnerable. Sometimes our storm systems get flooded. I mean, the intense rains, and our floods can't handle. We have a hard time dealing with a lot of the floodwaters in Snohomish County. So I think these are things that can freeze our economy. It can cut off communities. It can endanger public health, folks that are really reliant on energy and electric power to maintain their health care and their health. So these are things that really can stagger and immobilize us as a community, and as our economies and communities can get isolated through floods, through wildfires, through smoke, and extreme heat events. So these are really important things to definitely address. I know the state has been working hard through legislation that they've passed, and one of those things is the Growth Management Act. And it requires the county, specifically Snohomish County, to identify our vulnerabilities, to map them against natural hazards and map them against mid-century and end-of-century climate impact projections using best available climate science. So we're working towards that. That's due in 2029 in our comprehensive plan. And, to be honest, a lot of our climate change is addressed throughout various elements in our comprehensive plan. Even though we adopted a climate change and resiliency element, it's really integrated throughout because a lot of these cover and touch upon so many different topics. And although, Snohomish County is not a utility provider, we do coordinate closely with Puget Sound Energy, PUD, and through a lot of our water and wastewater providers and cities.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Molly, can you share a bit about how this work connects to broader county or regional sustainability goals?
I can, Rachel, thank you. The short answer is all of this work is cross-connected with other local, regional, and state planning. Some examples are this plan reflects the goals of Vision 2050 and multi-county planning efforts. To help, excuse me, implement some of our regional and local goals, the EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant efforts have funded regional comprehensive climate action planning that significantly reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. Also, as a result of the CPRG funding, a regional Energize program, for example, that's geared towards sponsoring youth in boots on the ground, work experience in multifamily energy efficiency retrofit programs is starting up soon. The goal is to create a pipeline of workforce development for the construction industry in Snohomish County.
Love that. Thank you. Eileen, from a planning standpoint, how does a community-wide resiliency plan fit into the county's broader long-range planning efforts?
Absolutely. So I work primarily on the comprehensive plan through our long range planning division. And the Community-Wide Climate Resiliency Plan really helps to implement some of the policies that we have on our books in our climate change and resiliency element. One of our policies specifically asked for a community-wide climate resiliency plan and working interdepartmentally and with our planning partners, and particularly with our tribal governments um, to address climate. It's going to take everyone. It's really a collaborative work, and it takes a lot of coordination to ensure that we're targeting the right areas at the right levels and ensuring that we're working together through our partnerships, like this venue, for example.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Molly, from your perspective, why is it important for employers and the business community to be aware of and to engage in resilience planning?
Great question. If you're a commercial business, efficiency retrofits not only reduce your GHG emissions, but it'll save you money on overhead. It's a huge cost. One example is the county's Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy and Resiliency, or CPACER, much easier to say, much less of a mouthful, program. It's a financing mechanism that helps commercial, industrial, agricultural, and multifamily buildings become more efficient and resilient through prioritized loans through a CPACER bank. And the second answer to this question is because climate change impacts tourism, infrastructure, and other community ventures. So during storm or flooding events, people can't get to businesses. They can't go, events get canceled. Stuff that brings money into a community stops. Costs rise. People can't get to work. So as a result, the community is negatively impacted.
Thank you. That's a great point. It really touches every facet of our day-to-day life and our business.
It
We're
really
hearing
can.
those stories firsthand right now through the SBA Disaster Loan
Yep.
Assistance Center out in Snohomish. So, Eileen, what types of data, modeling, or forecasting are informing the development of this plan?
That's a very good question and a very important question. The state amended our Growth Management Act and required us to use best available climate science. And one of those sources is the University of Washington Climate Impacts Group. So they do a lot of the modeling and the forecasting for mid and end of century projections for climate impacts. So we use the best available science, and sometimes it's informed by other state agencies too. So that's one of the important sources. And for our natural hazards, again, we use the climate impacts, but also we work on or we rely on our Department of Emergency Management Hazard Viewer, which they also base it off of best available science too.
Great.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to our audience today that is joining us via Zoom, if you have questions for our speakers, please drop them in the chat and we will relay them to Molly and Eileen. So as we continue, these questions are going to be for both of you, Molly and Eileen. How has collaboration shaped this process so far, and what partnerships have been most important?
I can take this first one. One of the things I've seen is a significant increase in the county's ability to step outside of established silos, to step across departmental workloads. One of the ways that we've ensured that that kind of cross collaboration happens now and in the future at Snohomish County is we've established an interdepartmental climate resiliency committee. So it's made up of representatives of about 20 different departments within Snohomish County, where we meet once a month and talk about the work that we're doing across the county towards planning or taking action on climate change. It's been a very effective way for all of us to be able to understand where our strengths and weaknesses are and to not duplicate efforts, which is something that's a pretty high risk if you're working in a siloed environment, which, government can tend to be.
Thank you. Someone just dropped in the chat. It looks like Bill is asking if community solar farms or wind farms are at all part of this planning.
So the level of planning on this effort doesn't necessarily dictate what actual physical projects that we'll be working on. This is a like a higher level planning document that allows us to look at where we might start to proceed next for implementation, identifies our gaps in our efforts across the county and the community. So while solar and wind are amazing ideas, and I, as the sustainability person for Snohomish County, would love to implement them all over the place. The plan doesn't necessarily dictate that as specific projects. It certainly mentions it as options that the county could undertake to promote increased resiliency.
Great, thank you. How are you both thinking about land use, growth, and infrastructure together when it comes to resilience?
I could take this one. I would say they go hand in hand for sure. As we touched upon earlier, we're all integrated, and it's a very codependent systems that we have. We really follow our vision, our regional vision for accommodating growth, and a lot of our growth in the Southwest urban growth area. We have a sub-area plan element in the comprehensive plan that's really targeting that Southwest urban growth area in Snohomish County. That's where because of our transportation networks and our high capacity transit, is where we're focusing a lot of our growth. And through our comprehensive plan updates, we reach out to our utilities, our water providers, sewer, PUD, PSC, to ensure that in that 20-year time frame that we have adequate capacity and the established levels of service to accommodate that projected growth for the 20 years. So that's how we work through that. And within that sub-area plan element, it also definitely talks about climate change and addresses climate change impacts. In fact, a lot of the model code language that's meant for the light rail stations that are coming to Snohomish County have worked with the cities of Everett, Linwood, and Mill Creek to ensure that we have common code language and goals and objectives in developing those light rail stations in partnerships with Sound Transit.
Great. You kind of touched on this just now with your last answer, but what role does cities, local jurisdictions, and regional partners play in shaping and implementing plans like this?
Well, a lot of it has to do with funding, and having these regional growth centers that we have in Snohomish County advocating for more is really a way to bring a lot of that transportation money to Snohomish County. We're really in a rivalry, not necessarily, but there's a lot of regional growth centers, primarily in King County and other counties, and there's just a certain amount of money and funding that comes to the county. And those regional growth centers are prioritized for these big transportation dollars. So in having these established regional growth centers in Snohomish County, and advocating for a few more, we're really pulling on those funds for our region, supporting the light rail stations that are coming and that in the areas of growth, in particular with the sub-area plan element.
Additionally, I'll add one more thing, that when we're addressing climate change, collaborative work with tribal partners, cities, regional partners, it's going to take a continued level of collaborative effort to build this resiliency. The making sure that we're integrated with the various planning efforts of our city partners and our tribal government partners, our folks in the economic community. We have to do this together because disparate plans can create, as I mentioned earlier, sort of this fragmentation where there are gaps that none of us can see.
Thank you. Without getting into specific policies, what does implementation look like for a plan like this once it's further along?
I can start. This plan is sort of a brain dump of where the county really is today. That was sort of completed in our first gap analysis and initial to working on this plan development. So we've identified areas of strength and we've identified needs, and we're coming together now to investigate and determine what we've already done and where we need to go. That's what our document really says. The plan isn't to dictate work, but to lay a roadmap for where the county should go to successfully meet the needs of future climate change.
Yeah, I might add, Molly, that we're also working on a regional scale too. We've
Mhm.
worked with Puget Sound Clean Air Agency as well as the Puget Sound Partnership and PSRC, Puget Sound Regional Council, on a lot of initiatives for habitat restoration, fish passage, clean water, and a lot of those things that really help increase carbon sinks in the area and increase tree canopy. And one of our recent adventures with in a regional planning is to address extreme heat events, changing climate, increasing hot days in the county, um, and wildfire smoke through a South and Central Puget Sound regional effort.
Thank you. I've been witnessing firsthand some of the work the county has been doing with the Stillaguamish tribes up in North County. I'm a Stanwood resident, and watching the salmon restoration project develop there has been quite remarkable. And I do, this is just my personal observation, but I do feel like in some ways that is also mitigating the flood risk in our area. I live in a floodplain myself, and it does seem that the dredging and that project has helped with flood mitigation as well. So we can do both. Um, okay, and what does this planning effort connect to? How does this planning effort connect to economic stability, supply chains, and long-term regional competitiveness?
So I think planning for extreme weather, heat, wildfire, smoke, flooding, all the stuff we've been talking about, can minimize and mitigate disruption to supply chain. That's a huge factor for what happens in our economy. Um, we can't prevent these events from happening, but we can plan for mitigation of the effects. We can plan for how we respond to things, and we can ensure that we're allowing for collaborative efforts so that folks that are from the community and from the county government and from cities and municipalities aren't siloed in their efforts. So it's it's one of the ways that this type of planning can really improve how we face the effects of climate change.
Thank you. Eileen, did you have anything to add there before we move on?
Well, I would just add that, some of the mandates that we have from the state are to really map, you know, our natural hazards and those natural hazards that are aggravated by climate change. So mapping our critical infrastructure and our community assets, and then identifying our vulnerabilities, like Molly said, it is forthcoming for mid and end of century projections. So we'll be doing that. And once we identify where we're vulnerable, then we'll have, potential, some options, we'll lay out some options as to how to best address those.
Looking ahead, what should stakeholders, especially employers and community partners, be paying attention to as this work continues to evolve?
Give us feedback when we go out for community feedback. Please give us feedback. Also, take a look at what's involved in our action steps, what we're thinking about as far as the feedback we've already received from community partners and our internal and other internal and external agency partnerships. We're looking for folks in this community in particular and several others to provide us with their thoughts about how this plan is shaping up. Um, no plan for a large community or for a county is worth its salt unless the folks who live in that area are participating in the planning effort.
Thank you. And if there's one key takeaway you'd like for our audience to leave with today, what would that be?
I don't know if Eileen has something for this, but ideally in my mind, this audience will come away with today's presentation, thinking about how to align their work and decisions with this plan to help make our community stronger and more resilient to climate change.
Eileen, did you have anything to add?
I think that's well said, Molly.
Good,
Thank you.
good, good. All right. Well, we're getting a couple more questions in the chat here. It says, I am concerned, this is from Nancy Johnson, I'm concerned about recent predictions that sea level rise will be faster and higher than previously expected. Has planning for infrastructure been updated?
I would say that's exactly what we're doing. When we update our shoreline management plan, that's due in 2029, the state is requiring us to take into consideration sea level rise. So we'll be doing that for sure.
Great, thank you. We have another question in the chat that says the county's own vulnerability tool says rural East County, Darrington, including Darrington, faces the highest climate risk. Does this plan include any action specifically designed for and with those communities, or does it assume countywide programs will trickle east? So is it more targeted or is it countywide, more general?
This plan is more general, but Eileen, did you have something to add?
I would just add that, yes, Darrington, the east side, as our hazard mitigation plan also underscores that area for a high level risk for wildfire and smoke. So as part of the 2025 hazard mitigation plan, there's an effort for a community wildfire protection plan. So DEM, the Department of our Snohomish County Department of Emergency Management, has been working closely with those communities that are at risk and the fire districts and fire departments in that area to help strengthen and increase knowledge about how best to plan for and develop in the areas that are in the wildfire risk zones, the WUI, the urban wildfire interface areas.
Great. Lots more questions coming in now. As from Sam Simano, she's asking where she can find a list of partners who currently have a seat at the table in this planning. Is there a published list or?
There's nothing published at this point. However, I'm happy we can provide that information subsequent to this meeting if you'd like a link to it. Our planning list, Sam, is extensive. Our partner list is extensive.
Love to hear that. From Jeff Moore, he's asking, how does some of this planning overlap with emergency management planning for broad spread natural disaster like earthquakes or tsunamis?
That is a really good question. Eileen, take it away.
Oh, it's an exciting question.
Yeah, it is. It's a good one.
We work really closely, both in development of our comprehensive plan and in development of the Communitywide Climate Resiliency Plan with our partners in our Department of Emergency Management Plan. So when we respond, there are the Department of Emergency Management has plans, in particular the hazard mitigation plan, to respond to emergencies and plan and prepare our communities for natural hazards and human-caused incidents, including climate change. So yeah, it's really interwoven, I would say, and I would say our Department of Emergency Management, that's one of their objectives in their mission statement.
I would add that when I mentioned earlier that the county now has an interdepartmental climate resiliency committee, both the HMP, the Hazard Mitigation Plan, and the Community Wildfire Plan were both presented on monthly. The ICRC was used as an internal steering committee for those efforts. So that made us able to, those of us who are working on the CWCRP, the Community-Wide Climate Resiliency Plan, that made us able to have sort of a firsthand knowledge of what was going into those other planning efforts. And so the integration went really smoothly. I think without those interdepartmental meetings, I think, I don't know, I think some of the effort would have been lost. I think it really improved our ability. Yeah, Eileen.
Yeah, and while the Department of Emergency Management leads the effort in responding to and preparing for natural disasters and human-caused events, it's in partnership with other county departments too. We know when there's an incident that happens, there's a task force that's all of the planning partners, depending on the scale of the event. And a lot of our departments, our public health department has a key role. Our human services has a key role. Public works has a key role. Surface water has a key role, depending on what the incident is. And in general, in preparing and ensuring that when we have an extreme heat event, our human services department, our public health department, we all have a specific role to play in that, in making sure that we get our messaging out in various languages, in different venues. And making sure that we have those the shelters for extreme heat events available to the public.
Great. Thank you. So thank you, Molly, Eileen, for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. Thank you for everyone that's joined us for this conversation. If you registered for today's coffee chats, we will be sending out a post-event email this afternoon, including resources from today's conversation, as well as additional resources Molly and Eileen have provided, and a copy of this recording. We'd love for you to share it and rewatch it and continue to help spread this information and this awareness. Today's discussion highlighted how planning efforts like this connect directly to the long-term stability of our region, from infrastructure systems and supply chains to workforce and economic resilience. And at EASC, we're committed to convening conversations like this that help connect public planning efforts with the needs and perspectives of employers and our community partners. So we encourage you to stay engaged as this work continues to evolve and to keep an eye out for future opportunities to learn more. Before we conclude today, we'd love to plug a couple upcoming events. We'd love to invite you to join us on April 14th at Tulalip Resort Casino for our annual meeting, Economic Forecast and Snohomish County Awards. This event is where regional leaders gather to hear the latest economic outlook and celebrate the individuals and organizations driving Snohomish County's success. Also, an opportunity for our EASC investors. This May 5th through 7th, we're heading to Washington, D.C. for our federal advocacy trip. It's a chance to represent Snohomish County on the national stage, meeting with members of Congress and federal agencies while also building connections with fellow regional leaders. We make it easy with hotel accommodations, networking receptions, and coordinated meetings included. You can scan the QR code on your screen or contact us for more information on how to get involved. One last plug, tonight at Apex Event Center in Everett at 1611 Everett Avenue, Emerging Leaders is happening. We will be celebrating the 2026 class of emerging leaders. These are the future leaders of Snohomish County's workforce. We would love to see you there. It is from 5 to 7 p.m. again at Apex Everett. The event is free to attend, so come and network with the future's brightest of Snohomish County during Emerging Leaders. And you can learn more about that and all of our upcoming events on EASC's website by scanning the QR code on your screen or visiting economicalliancesc.org/events. Thanks so much for being here with us this morning. Again, let's go to gallery view so we can see all your smiling faces. And let's raise a mug if you have one to partnerships, civic engagement, and thoughtful policy that keeps Snohomish County's economy strong and moving forward. So take care, and we'll catch you on the next Coffee Chats.